Hi, fellow single mothers. This is Reverend Tega Swan again with another episode of God's Grace for Single Mothers. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about the topic. It's who you are that you bring into parenting. It's who you are that you bring into parenting. Many years ago, I heard this proverb that you cannot give what you do not have. And parenting is one of those skills that whoever you are, beyond genetics, is what you give to your children. So, really, what I'm trying to say is when you look at yourself and you try to imagine the kind of children you're raising or the kind of children that society sees you raising, they see you raising yourself. It's not something they project on you, is what is going to come out in your children. So, for example, if you're someone who swears at home, society is going to meet with your kids who swear. If you're someone who's violent, who fights, society is going to meet a child who fights. If you're someone who cannot be engaged in positive things, you are not working, you don't demonstrate that discipline of routine in work, your children are going to carry the same thing. They're going to be the kids who go to school and they cannot settle down, they cannot study. So who you are is who you bring into this parenting. But the good thing about it is there are certain things that are necessary to parent. They're like the foundation of raising kids. And these are the things that we as single moms, we really need to make sure we have. Regardless of where you're from, you need to make sure that your children are constantly seeing this in you, that this is the you that they see. One of those things, industry. I have lived in different parts of the world and I have seen successful children being raised by different categories of people. I have seen full uneducated people raise full educated people. How did that happen? Knowing the values, what do you want? When you look at your child, you have to ask yourself, the child is presented to you like a blank page. And like an artist, you have to ask yourself, what kind of child do I want? If you want a hardworking child, it's going to start with you modeling hard work in your lives. And then you can now teach that child the importance of hard work by assigning them duties at home, making sure they're engaged properly in school, they're doing their work, you're paying attention to their work, school work. When school is out, you're making sure they're engaged in positive things. And you yourself, you have to model this, not just ask it of them, you have to model it to them. Do you want a child who knows how to be kind and generous and thoughtful? Then you have to model it. You have to be kind and generous and thoughtful to your children as well as to others. Your children have to see you modeling this thing. These are just these are examples of deliberate things that we need to pay attention to, whether it be faith, spirituality, tolerance of neighbor, acceptance of people, integrity. These are the building blocks that actually they make a person, regardless of where you come from. They are always valued in a person. And so if you want to put your kids out there, you're going to have to look within yourself, make sure you are finding ways to cultivate these values and practice them in your own life so that you can transfer them to your children. Now, the good thing about the way God created us humans and the way he relates to us, it's never too late. You may not have grown up in a background that showed you any of these things. You may not have been prepared for being the permanent role model for your children. Whatever, it does not matter. Now you know. Now, as a parent who wants to do a good job as a parent and wants their children to succeed, you're gonna have to start learning. You're gonna have to start learning. You have no clue the impact of you having some of these basic values. You have no clue the impact it transfers to your children. I want to share an anecdote from my own personal life. So I'm many decades old. Woman never tells her age, but I'm pretty up there in age. And my father, he was the scholarly one. He's the one who would talk to you about stuff. And I learned how to read very early because we had an informal indigenous schooling system called a Takara. And when my immediate oldest sister was going, I was not old enough, but I would cry and I wanted to go with her, so they let me go. I ended up reading at a very early age, and I loved books and I devoured books. And because my dad was a scholar, he had books all over the house. So in that way, he provided the environment for me, and he was always reading. So it was easy for me not to feel that I wasn't forced into reading. I loved it. I would sit down and read. So here, my mom, on the other hand, my mom is only educated up to middle school or I think elementary school. However, she was a very disciplined person herself. She was really organized, and she really had smarts. She was business smart. She was really, she ran her own business and things like that. But what really impacted me was both their lives at home, how organized it was, that waking up on at a certain time, having a routine of chores, and then going to work. It was something I had no clue how much it would have an impact on me. But as I've lived my life, as I've been through many difficult, hard situations, I've always realized that I never stopped for one moment to think this is unusual. No, hard work was not unusual because I've seen my parents work. It was not unusual. Being responsible for making sure kids eat at a certain time, having set times for bed, it was not unusual. Because I've been raised, I've seen my parents go to bed. Vices. We lived in a culture, I grew up in a place where my cousins, they smoked. But no one in my parents' children, they didn't smoke. And I used to wonder why, until I grew up and realized, well, we didn't have anybody in that was in our house that was someone you look up to who smoked. It was not allowed. My parents didn't do it. Simple thing as chewing gum. Oh boy, I used to get I used to be really frustrated because I had friends in high school. People would be chewing gum all over the place. And I remember as a young teenager, preteen, all through my adult life, just recently I started chewing gum in public. I couldn't chew gum. Why? Because my parents thought that it was not quite the thing to do, when you're in public and your mouth is going. I'm not saying that that's a rule, but what I'm just saying is you would be amazed how much of a role model you are to your children and how much of an impact the little values that you model before them, cleanliness at home, orderliness, taking showers, doing laundry, doing their own laundry, making them clean up after themselves, you demonstrating that, you not sleeping every day till 12 o'clock, but waking up at a certain time, get them ready for bed, getting engaged and stuff. You'll be surprised how it impacts them. My mom retired many years ago from her business, but she never stopped waking up at 5:30 a.m. every single day. And she would wake up. Here was the funny thing: she would wake up, she would take a shower, she would get nicely dressed and have her makeup, even on the day she had nothing to do. And I used to say, Mom, but you're not going out to your business today. Why are you doing this? She said, no. It doesn't matter whether you have a place to go or not. You need to wake up at the right time. You need to get a shower. You need to do your things. And then you sit down and see how the day goes. And this has stayed with me. I'm many decades old now, and it's the same thing. Whether I have anything to do on a day or not, whether I'm off on a day or not, I wake up, make sure everything is done, and then I go back to bed and stay in bed. And teaching this to our children is going to help them when they get to college and they have to wake up on the same time every single day, be in class. You're not there to wake them up. But because you've already invested in showing them the value of consistency, that it's a part of life, it doesn't take away from them, it's going to help them. So here, single mom, I want you to look into whatever values, because for each of us it differs. What do you want to pass on to your kids? What kind of kids do you want to raise? And then I want to ask you to please start to imbibe those principles and model and demonstrate them in your own life. And then teach them to your children. And in this way, we don't have to worry what people think about us, because we know our kids are going to, like the Bible says, stand in the gates of the enemies and do us proud. Thanks for listening. God bless you, and tune in next week.